Commander Sarah Chen adjusted her dress uniform one final time before stepping onto the transport pad. The weight of Earth's expectations pressed down on her shoulders like the gravity of a gas giant. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment, humanity's first formal diplomatic contact with the Zephyrian Empire, a civilization that spanned 12 star systems and commanded technology that made human achievements look like cave paintings. The USS Harmony floated in the void beyond Zephyr Prime's third moon, its sleek hull reflecting the pale blue light of the alien sun. Sarah had handpicked her diplomatic team with care. Dr. Marcus Webb, the xenolinguist who had cracked the Zephyrian communication protocols, Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka, their military attaché and cultural specialist, and Dr. Elena Vasquez, the xenobiologist whose studies had helped them understand Zephyrian physiology, enough to avoid any embarrassing biological faux pas. The Zephyrians had been watching humanity for decades before making contact. Their first message had been simple yet profound. "We have observed your species' remarkable resilience and adaptability. We wish to speak." It had taken 2 years of careful back-and-forth communications to arrange this meeting, with both sides agreeing to meet on neutral ground, a massive space station orbiting the gas giant Corvana in the DMZ between human and Zephyrian space. As the transport shuttle approached the station, Sarah marveled at its construction. The Zephyrians had built it specifically for this meeting, a crystalline structure that seemed to grow organically from the void itself. Spiraling towers twisted upward like frozen tornadoes, connected by flowing bridges that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. It was beautiful and alien in equal measure, a testament to a civilization that had learned to blend technology with artistry in ways humans were only beginning to imagine. The docking procedure went smoothly, their shuttle settling into a berth that molded itself around their craft like living metal. The airlock cycled with a musical chime rather than the harsh mechanical sounds Sarah was used to. When the doors opened, she found herself face to face with her first Zephyrian. Ambassador Kethvar stood nearly 8 feet tall, his elongated form draped in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. His skin had a subtle blue-green tint that shifted with his emotions, and his large, multifaceted eyes held an intelligence that made Sarah feel both welcomed and carefully evaluated. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated in her chest. "Commander Chen," he said, his English flawless despite the alien accent. "Welcome to Threshold Station. We are honored by your presence." Sarah bowed in the manner her cultural briefings had specified. "Ambassador Kethvar, the honor is ours. Humanity looks forward to this historic meeting." The next several hours passed in a blur of formal presentations and careful negotiations. The Zephyrians were interested in establishing trade routes and scientific exchanges. They had medical technologies that could revolutionize human healthcare, while humanity's unique perspective on problem-solving and adaptation intrigued them. Sarah began to feel cautiously optimistic as the talks progressed. It was during the formal dinner that she first saw Princess Lyra. The princess entered the dining hall like a force of nature, her presence immediately commanding the attention of everyone present. Where Ambassador Kethvar was formal and measured, Princess Lyra moved with a fluid grace that reminded Sarah of flowing water. Her robes were deep purple shot through with silver threads that seemed to move of their own accord, and her skin held a luminescence that was mesmerizing. But it was her eyes that truly captured Sarah's attention. Unlike the multifaceted eyes of other Zephyrians, the princess had eyes that were almost human in their expressiveness, though they shifted color from deep violet to silver depending on the light. When those eyes met Sarah's across the room, the commander felt an electric jolt of recognition, as if she was seeing something she had been searching for without knowing it. The princess was introduced as Kethvar's daughter and a prominent voice in Zephyrian society, particularly among the younger generation who favored closer ties with emerging species. Throughout the dinner, Sarah found herself stealing glances at the princess who seemed equally interested in studying the human delegation. The evening's entertainment was a performance of Zephyrian harmonic poetry, where the aliens created complex, musical patterns with their voices while telling epic stories of their history. Sarah was enthralled, but she noticed that Princess Lyra seemed distracted. her attention repeatedly drifting to the human table. After the performance, as the delegates mingled in smaller groups, Princess Lyra Nell approached Sarah directly. The commander's cultural training kicked in as she prepared for what might be a critical interaction. "Commander Chen," the princess said, her voice carrying a melody that was distinctly different from her father's formal tones. "I hope you are finding our hospitality adequate." "More than adequate, Your Highness. Your people have been incredibly gracious." The princess smiled, an expression that transformed her alien features into something warmly familiar. "Please call me Lyra. We are not so formal among friends, and I hope we shall be friends." They talked for nearly an hour, with Lyra asking penetrating questions about human society, culture, and philosophy. Sarah found herself impressed by the princess's depth of knowledge about humanity and her genuine curiosity about their differences and similarities. Unlike her father's diplomatic queries, Lyra's questions felt personal, as if she was trying to understand not just humanity as a species, but Sarah as an individual. As the evening wound down and the delegates began to retire to their quarters, Princess Lyra Nell walked with Sarah toward the guest wing. The corridor was dimly lit with the same bioluminescent patterns that decorated the station's exterior, creating an intimate atmosphere. "Commander," Lyra said softly as they reached Sarah's door, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." The princess hesitated, her skin flickering with patterns that Sarah's briefings had indicated meant uncertainty or emotional conflict. "What is it like to explore the unknown? To venture into space not knowing what you might find?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. There's always the risk that you might not come home, but there's also the possibility that you might discover something that changes everything." Lyra nodded slowly, her color patterns shifting to something that seemed almost wistful. "I have always wondered what that would feel like, to leave everything familiar behind and journey into the vast unknown. Perhaps someday you'll have the chance to find out," Sarah replied, though she immediately wondered if that was appropriate to say to an alien princess. Lyra Nell's eyes met hers with an intensity that made Sarah's breath catch. "Perhaps," the princess whispered, and there was something in her voice that suggested she might already be planning such a journey. The second day of negotiations began with an unexpected development. Ambassador Kethvar announced that Princess Lyra Nell would be joining the formal talks as an observer, representing the voice of younger Zephyrians who would inherit whatever agreements were reached. Sarah noticed the subtle tension this caused among some of the Zephyrian delegation, though she couldn't interpret the color patterns flickering across their skin well enough to understand the nature of their concern. Dr. Webb was making excellent progress on the scientific exchange protocols when Princess Lyra Nell made her first intervention. The discussion had turned to human exploration methods, and the Zephyrians were expressing polite bewilderment at humanity's tendency to send relatively small crews to investigate potentially dangerous phenomena. "Forgive me," Lyra interjected, her voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity, "but I don't understand why you send so few people on these missions. Surely larger expeditions would be safer." Sarah leaned forward slightly. "We've found that smaller teams are often more effective. They're more adaptable, can make decisions quickly, and leave a smaller footprint when studying new environments or cultures. Sometimes the best discoveries come from taking calculated risks with minimal resources." The princess's skin shifted to patterns that Sarah was beginning to recognize as intense interest. "But doesn't this approach require extraordinary trust and individual judgment? Your crew members must be remarkably capable to succeed with such limited support." "They are," Sarah replied with pride. "We don't just train our people to follow orders. We train them to think, to adapt, to overcome obstacles that no one anticipated. Every human who goes into space knows they might face situations where the nearest help is years away." Dr. Vasquez nodded in agreement. "Human crews have survived equipment failures, hostile environments, and first contact scenarios that would have destroyed larger expeditions. Our strength isn't in our numbers, it's in our ability to find solutions when everything goes wrong." The formal delegates continued their discussions, but Sarah noticed that Princess Lyra Nell had become increasingly quiet, her attention turning inward. During the afternoon break, the princess approached Sarah privately. "Commander, could you show me your ship? I am curious about how humans live and work in space. The request was unusual but not unreasonable, and Ambassador HFY gave his approval after a brief consultation. Sarah contacted the Harmony and arranged for a small tour group to visit the vessel. Princess Lyranel insisted on bringing only 2 guards, a gesture that Sarah appreciated for its implications of trust. The shuttle ride to the Harmony gave Sarah a chance to observe the princess in a less formal setting. Lyranel pressed her face to the viewport like an excited child, watching the human ship grow larger as they approached. Her skin patterns cycled through colors that Sarah was learning to associate with wonder and anticipation. "It's smaller than I expected," the princess said as they docked, "but there's something about it that feels purposeful, like every part has been designed for a specific reason." Captain Rodriguez met them at the airlock, and Sarah took pride in watching the princess's reaction to the Harmony's interior. Where Zephyrian ships were flowing and organic, human vessels were precise and functional. Every surface served multiple purposes. Every system was designed for easy maintenance and repair. It was engineering born from necessity rather than artistry. Lyranel was fascinated by the cramped quarters and multi-purpose spaces. She spent long minutes examining the crew's personal areas, asking questions about how humans managed isolation and stress during long voyages. When they reached the observation deck, she stood silently for several minutes, watching Earth's sun as a distant star among thousands. "This is what your people see when they leave home," she said softly. "Just another star among stars." "It keeps things in perspective," Sarah replied. "Out here, Earth's problems seem smaller, but Earth itself becomes more precious. Every human in space carries a piece of home with them, but we also carry the responsibility to find new homes for future generations." The princess turned to face her, and Sarah was struck by the intensity of her expression. What if someone wanted to carry that responsibility but wasn't human? What if someone wanted to be part of that journey into the unknown? Before Sarah could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the comm system. "All hands to stations. We have multiple Zephyrian military vessels approaching at high velocity. This is not a drill." The princess's guards immediately moved to protective positions, their skin patterns shifting to aggressive colors. Princess Lyranel herself seemed to deflate, her luminescence dimming as understanding washed over her features. "They've come for me," she said quietly. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" "My father's political opponents have been waiting for an excuse to undermine these negotiations. My presence here, my interest in human culture, they'll call it seditious. They'll say I've been corrupted by contact with an inferior species." The tactical display in the observation lounge showed 6 Zephyrian warships in formation, their crystalline hulls bristling with weapons that could reduce the Harmony to atoms in seconds. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. If they took the princess by force, it would end the diplomatic mission and potentially start a war. If they accused her of corrupting a member of the royal family, it would end any chance of peaceful relations between their species. "Princess," Sarah said carefully, "what are your options here?" Lyranel's skin patterns shifted to what Sarah now recognized as resigned acceptance. "I return with them, face whatever charges they bring, and spend the rest of my life under close supervision. The negotiations continue, but any meaningful cooperation between our peoples dies with them. They'll make sure no Zephyrian ever again shows too much interest in human culture. And if you don't return with them?" The princess looked directly into Sarah's eyes, and in that moment, the commander saw something that transcended species boundaries, the desperate hope of someone who had glimpsed freedom and couldn't bear to let it go. "Then I become an exile," Lyranel whispered. "Cast out from my people with nowhere to go." She paused, her next words so quiet Sarah had to strain to hear them. "Unless someone was willing to take me with them." The request hung in the air between them like a live wire. Sarah's training screamed warnings about the diplomatic catastrophe that would result from harboring a Zephyrian princess. But looking at Lyranel, seeing the courage it had taken to even voice such a hope, Sarah found herself thinking not like a diplomat but like a human. Humans had always been willing to take desperate chances for freedom. They had crossed oceans in tiny boats, traveled through hostile wilderness, and launched themselves into space on pillars of fire, all for the chance to build something new, something better. How could she deny that same chance to someone else, regardless of species? Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through her thoughts. Commander, we need a decision. The Zephyrian ships are demanding immediate compliance, and our orders are to avoid any action that might compromise the mission. Sarah looked at Princess Lyranel one more time, seeing in her alien features the same expression she had seen on the faces of every explorer who had ever left safety behind to chase the horizon, the same expression she saw in her own mirror every morning. "Captain," Sarah said into her comm unit, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was about to do. "Prepare for emergency departure and clear a guest quarters for an extended passenger." The next 60 seconds changed the course of galactic history. Princess Lyranel's guards, rather than restraining their charge as Sarah expected, stepped aside with expressions of what she was learning to recognize as pride mixed with sorrow. The elder of the two, a weathered Zephyrian with scars across his crystalline skin patches, spoke in their musical language before switching to English. "Princess, we have served your family for generations. We cannot follow where you go, but we will not stop you from choosing your own path." He removed something from his robes, a pendant that pulsed with soft blue light. "Your mother's blessing stone. She would want you to carry it to whatever new world awaits." Lyranel accepted the pendant with trembling hands, her skin cycling through patterns of grief and gratitude. "Tell my father I did this not out of hatred for our people, but out of love for what we could become." Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm again, more urgent now. "Commander, Zephyrian ships are charging weapons. We need to move now if we're going to move at all." Sarah grabbed Princess Lyranel's hand, an action that would have been unthinkable in formal diplomatic settings, but felt perfectly natural in this moment of crisis. "Are you absolutely certain about this? Once we leave, there's no going back." The princess squeezed her hand, and Sarah was surprised by the warmth and strength in that alien grip. "I have never been more certain of anything. I choose the unknown over the cage of certainty." They ran through the corridors of the Harmony as the ship's engines powered up to emergency levels. The princess moved with fluid grace despite her flowing robes, keeping pace with Sarah's sprint. Behind them, her guards calmly walked to the airlock, preparing to return to the shuttle and face whatever consequences awaited them. The bridge was a storm of controlled chaos when they arrived. Captain Rodriguez was coordinating with his crew while monitoring the Zephyrian ship's approach. The tactical display showed weapon locks from multiple vessels, but they hadn't fired yet. "Status report," Sarah commanded, dropping into the observer's chair while Princess Lyranel stood beside her, trying to stay out of the way. "6 warships in attack formation," reported Lieutenant Torres from the tactical station. "They're demanding we return Princess Lyranel immediately and submit to boarding. If we refuse, they're authorized to use force." "Time to jump coordinates? 90 seconds to minimum safe distance from the station." Sarah looked at the display showing the approaching Zephyrian fleet. Each ship was 3 times the size of the Harmony and carried enough firepower to sterilize a small moon. In a straight fight, they wouldn't last 30 seconds. But humans hadn't survived this long by fighting fair. They survived by being smarter, faster, and more unpredictable than their enemies. "Captain, remember the Kepler maneuver we practiced during war games?" Rodriguez grinned, understanding immediately. "The one where we use a gravity well to slingshot past enemy forces while they're still calculating firing solutions?" "That's the one. Except this time we use the gas giant's magnetosphere to mask our jump signature." Princess Lyranel watched in fascination as the human crew transformed into something resembling a single organism. Every person knew their role. Every action flowed seamlessly into the next. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. She had studied human tactical reports, but seeing their adaptability in person was breathtaking. The Harmony dove toward the gas giant Corvana at an angle that made the Zephyrian targeting computers struggle to maintain locks. The massive planet's magnetic field began interfering with sensors on both sides, creating a brief window of opportunity. "Zephyrian ships are pursuing," Torres reported. "They're trying to match our trajectory." "They're thinking like Zephyrians," Sarah said with satisfaction. "Logical, methodical, by the book. But we're about to show them why humans don't always follow the book." At the last possible second, Captain Rodriguez fired the ship's thrusters in a combination that should have torn the Harmony apart. Instead, the little ship whipped around Corvana's gravity well like a stone from a slingshot, using the planet's rotation to add velocity while the Magnetosphere scrambled every sensor for light years around. Princess Lyranel gripped the railing as forces that would have crushed a normal being pressed against the ship's structural integrity fields. She watched Sarah and the crew work, marveling at their calm efficiency even as they performed maneuvers that violated several principles of safe spaceflight. When they cleared Corvana's interference zone, the Zephyrian ships were on the wrong side of the planet, frantically trying to reacquire their target. The Harmony had gained precious minutes. "Jump drive charged and ready," reported the navigation officer. "Coordinates locked in for Earth?" "No, sir," Sarah interrupted. "New coordinates. Deep space, Sector 47. Somewhere we can think without anyone shooting at us." The jump to hyperspace felt different with Princess Lyranel aboard, though Sarah couldn't say exactly why. Perhaps it was the knowledge that they were carrying the future of interspecies relations with them. Or perhaps it was simply the presence of someone experiencing human technology for the first time. As the stars stretched into lines and then disappeared entirely, Princess Lyranel moved to the main viewport. Her skin patterns shifted to colors Sarah had never seen before. Deep purples shot through with gold, creating mandalas of light across her features. "Is this what freedom feels like?" the princess asked softly. Sarah joined her at the viewport, looking out into the swirling chaos of hyperspace. "I don't know. Ask me again when we figure out what comes next." The princess turned to face her, and Sarah was struck again by how expressive those alien eyes could be. "What does come next? I have made myself an exile from my people and placed you in an impossible position. Your government will be furious that you've compromised the mission." Sarah had been thinking about exactly that problem since they jumped. "Actually, I think we might have saved the mission. Your people respect strength and decisive action, right? Well, we just demonstrated both. And we proved that humans will fight for their principles even when it's dangerous." Dr. Webb looked up from his console where he had been monitoring Zephyrian communications. "She's right. I'm picking up chatter from the ships that were chasing us. They're calling our escape impossible but tactically brilliant. The word they're using translates roughly to worthy of respect through adversity." Captain Rodriguez secured the ship for extended hyperspace travel and joined their conversation. "Commander, we need to talk about our next move. We can't stay in hyperspace forever, and when we drop back into normal space, every government in the galaxy is going to want answers." Princess Lyranel straightened, her bearing becoming more regal despite her circumstances. "Then we give them answers that serve everyone's interests. Commander Chen, I propose that my presence aboard your ship becomes not a diplomatic incident but a new form of diplomacy itself." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I become the first Zephyrian ambassador to humanity, not appointed by my government, but chosen by circumstances and mutual respect. I learn your ways, you learn mine, and together we build the foundation for understanding that formal negotiations never could." The idea was audacious, unprecedented, and completely outside any diplomatic protocol Sarah had ever studied. It was also, she realized, exactly the kind of bold gesture that might actually work. "The first interspecies defector turned ambassador," Captain Rodriguez mused. "I like it. It's crazy enough to be brilliant." Princess Lyranel's skin patterns shifted to warm golds and greens, colors that Sarah was beginning to associate with hope and determination. "Then let us make history together, Commander Chen. Let us show both our peoples what friendship between species can accomplish." 3 days into their journey toward Earth, Princess Lyranel had transformed from a diplomatic crisis into something unprecedented, a bridge between worlds. Sarah found her each morning in the observation lounge, studying star charts and human cultural databases with an intensity that reminded her of graduate students preparing for comprehensive exams. "Your people name your stars after ancient myths," Lyra observed as Sarah joined her for morning coffee, a human ritual the princess had quickly adopted, though her metabolism processed caffeine quite differently. "We name ours after mathematical concepts. What does that say about our respective species?" Sarah considered the question while sipping her coffee. "Maybe that you see the universe as something to be understood through logic, while we see it as something to be filled with stories." "And yet," Lyra replied, her skin pattern shifting to contemplative blues, "your stories have led you to discoveries that our logic might have missed. Your mythology speaks of heroes who achieve impossible things through courage and determination. Our mathematics tells us that certain things simply cannot be done. Dr. Webb emerged from his linguistics station, looking excited. Princess, I've been analyzing the communications we intercepted from the Zephyrian ships. The political situation back home is more complex than we initially understood. Lyra's attention sharpened immediately. What have you discovered? The faction that sent those warships doesn't represent the majority view. In fact, there's significant debate in your government about whether your actions represent treason or inspired diplomacy. The younger generation seems to view you as a hero for choosing your own path. The princess's skin patterns cycled through colors that Sarah was learning to read as surprise mixed with hope. That is unexpected. I assumed my father would denounce my actions to maintain political stability. Actually, Webb continued, consulting his notes, Ambassador Kethvar has taken a remarkable position. He's arguing that your choice demonstrates the depth of commitment necessary for true interspecies cooperation. He's calling it the ultimate diplomatic gesture, giving one's own life to the cause of understanding. Sarah felt a surge of respect for the Zephyrian ambassador. He's turning your escape into a positive narrative. Brilliant political maneuvering. My father was always clever, Lyra said softly, her patterns showing a mixture of pride and sadness. But this means I can never return, not without undermining his position. I truly am in exile now. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's communication system. All senior staff to the bridge. We have a situation. They found the bridge crew monitoring long-range sensors with expressions of concern. Lieutenant Torres looked up from her station as they approached. We're being followed, she reported. Single ship maintaining distance but matching our course changes. It's not Zephyrian, Sarah frowned at the tactical display. Human vessel? Negative. Configuration is unknown, but energy signatures suggest advanced technology. Possibly more advanced than either human or Zephyrian. Princess Lyranel studied the sensor readings, her skin patterns shifting to colors that suggested recognition mixed with concern. Commander, I believe that is a hegemony scout ship. The name sent a chill through the bridge crew. The hegemony was a loose confederation of species that controlled territory on the far side of Zephyrian space. They were known for their aggressive expansion policies, and their belief that younger species should serve as client states to more established civilizations. What would the hegemony want with us? Sarah asked. Information, Lyra replied grimly. My presence aboard a human ship represents a shift in the balance of power in this region. If humans and Zephyrians form an alliance, it threatens hegemony plans for expansion into our territories. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console where she had been monitoring the ship's biosystems. There's something else. I've been tracking the princess's physiological adaptation to our ship's environment, and I'm seeing some remarkable changes. What kind of changes? Sarah asked, though she was beginning to suspect she knew the answer. Her cellular structure is adapting to human technology in ways that shouldn't be possible. It's as if her body is learning to interface directly with our systems. The bio-neural networks in her nervous system are creating new pathways that mirror our computer architecture. Princess Lyranel looked down at her hands, where faint patterns of light were visible beneath her skin. I have been feeling different, more connected to the ship somehow. I thought it was simply familiarity. It's more than that, Vasquez continued. You're becoming something new, part Zephyrian, part human in terms of how you process information and interact with technology. You're the first truly hybrid consciousness we've ever encountered. The implications were staggering. If Princess Lyranel was evolving into a bridge between human and Zephyrian technology, she represented something far more valuable than a diplomatic symbol. She was becoming the key to genuine integration between their species. No wonder the hegemony is interested, Captain Rodriguez muttered. A being who can interface with both human and Zephyrian technology would be invaluable to anyone planning to exploit our weaknesses. Sarah made a decision that would have profound consequences for all of them. Change course. Instead of heading directly to Earth, we're taking a detour through the Tau Ceti system. If the hegemony wants to study the princess, they'll have to catch us first. That's a dangerous route, Torres warned. Tau Ceti has unstable solar activity that plays havoc with sensors and communications. Exactly, Sarah replied with a grin that would have made her ancestors proud. Humans have been using environmental hazards as tactical advantages since we learned to fight. Time to show our friends from the hegemony why you don't chase a human ship through hostile territory. Princess Lyranel watched the crew prepare for the course change with growing amazement. Where Zephyrian crews would spend hours calculating optimal solutions and risk assessments, the humans simply adapted their plan to meet new circumstances. Their flexibility was remarkable, almost incomprehensible to someone raised in a culture that valued careful deliberation. "Commander," she said quietly, "I am beginning to understand why your species has succeeded, despite having less advanced technology than your neighbors. You do not fight the universe, you dance with it." "That's one way to put it," Sarah replied, watching the tactical display as they altered course toward Tau Ceti. "We've learned that the universe doesn't care about our plans, so we make our plans flexible enough to survive contact with reality." The hegemony ship followed them into the Tau Ceti system, but as they entered the region of unstable solar activity, something unexpected happened. Princess Lyranel suddenly gasped, her skin patterns flaring into brilliant displays of light. "I can feel it," she whispered. "The ship's systems, the stellar radiation, the gravitational fields, it's all connected. I can see the patterns." Dr. Vasquez monitored her readings with growing excitement. Her neural activity is off the charts. It's as if she's processing the entire system as a single comprehensible pattern. "Princess," Sarah said carefully, "can you predict the solar flares? Can you see where the safe paths are?" Lyranel closed her eyes, her entire body now glowing with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's computers. When she opened her eyes again, they held a knowledge that transcended her individual experience. "Yes," she said simply, "I can guide us through the storm. But more than that, I can use the storm itself to hide our true destination. The hegemony ship will lose us completely." As they plunged deeper into the Tau Ceti system's chaotic environment, guided by Princess Lyranel's unprecedented abilities, Sarah realized they were witnessing the birth of something entirely new. The princess was no longer just a Zephyrian who had chosen exile. She was becoming the first member of a new kind of being, one that could bridge the gap between species not through diplomacy, but through fundamental understanding of the universe itself. The Tau Ceti system became their sanctuary and their laboratory. For 2 weeks, the Harmony danced through stellar storms that would have destroyed most ships, guided by Princess Lyranel's growing ability to perceive the universe in ways that neither human nor Zephyrian science had ever imagined. The hegemony scout ship had lost them on the 3rd day, its sensors overwhelmed by the chaotic energy patterns that Lyra could navigate as easily as reading a map. Sarah found the princess in the ship's modified hydroponics bay, where she had created something that defied classification. Plants from Earth grew alongside crystalline formations that resembled Zephyrian biotechnology, but the whole assemblage pulsed with energy patterns that belonged to neither species. It was beautiful and alien and somehow perfectly natural all at once. "What is this?" Sarah asked, running her fingers along a vine that seemed to conduct electricity through its leaves. "I am not certain," Lyra replied, her skin pattern showing the deep contentment that had become her dominant emotional state. "I have been experimenting with combining human agricultural techniques and Zephyrian energy cultivation. The results exceed what either approach could achieve alone." Dr. Vasquez emerged from behind a cluster of crystalline fruit trees, her scanner showing readings that made her shake her head in wonder. "The energy output from these hybrid plants is extraordinary. They're producing more nutrients per square meter than any Earth crop, while also generating enough bioelectrical energy to power essential ship systems." "It's not just the plants," Princess Lyranel said, settling cross-legged beside a formation that looked like a cross between a fern and a circuit board. "Everything aboard the ship is beginning to change. The human technology is adapting to accommodate Zephyrian principles, while my own biology continues to evolve in response to human innovation." She was right. Over the past 2 weeks, the ship itself had begun to feel different. Systems that had operated independently were now integrated in ways that improved efficiency beyond anything the original designers had intended. The princess's presence had somehow catalyzed a fusion of technologies that created something entirely new. Captain Rodriguez joined them, looking simultaneously impressed and concerned. "Princess, we've received a transmission from Earth. Starfleet Command wants a full report on the diplomatic mission, and they're very interested in meeting you." "What did you tell them?" Sarah asked. "The truth, that we have the first Zephyrian refugee, that she's chosen to work with humanity, and that she represents an unprecedented opportunity for cooperation between our species." He paused, studying the hybrid garden around them. "Though I may have understated exactly how unprecedented, Princess Lyranel's skin pattern shifted to colors that suggested both anticipation and apprehension. "What concerns you, Captain?" Rodriguez gestured to the transformed hydroponics bay. "This. What you're becoming. What you're doing to the ship. It's beyond anything in our experience. When we reach Earth, there are going to be people who see you as a threat rather than an opportunity." Sarah had been thinking about the same problem. There will also be people who see her as a resource to be exploited. Scientists who want to study her. Military officials who want to weaponize her abilities. Politicians who want to use her as a symbol. "Then perhaps," Lyra said thoughtfully, "we should ensure that I am not the only one of my kind when we arrive." Both humans stared at her. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. The princess stood and moved to the central display console, her hands dancing over controls in patterns that seemed to merge human interface techniques with something entirely new. The screen lit up with a complex diagram showing energy flows throughout the ship. "I mean that the changes occurring in me are not unique. Dr. Vasquez's medical scans show that the human crew is also adapting. Your neural pathways are developing new connections that mirror Zephyrian thought patterns. Captain Rodriguez's reflexes are becoming faster and more intuitive. Commander Chen, your strategic thinking is incorporating non-linear analysis methods that my people use." She was right. Sarah had noticed that her thought processes seemed clearer, more multifaceted. Problems that would have taken hours to analyze were now resolving themselves in minutes. She had attributed it to experience, but looking at the data Lyra was showing them, she realized it was something far more profound. "We're all evolving," Dr. Vasquez breathed, staring at the bio-neural patterns displayed on the screen. The close proximity to Zephyrian biotechnology, combined with the stress of our situation, is triggering adaptive responses in human physiology. And my presence aboard a human ship is causing similar adaptations in my own biology, Lyra added. "We are becoming something new together. Not human, not Zephyrian, but a synthesis of both." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Torres's voice came over the comm system. "All hands to stations. We have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Configuration appears to be a hegemony battle group." They rushed to the bridge to find a tactical display showing 12 ships in formation around the Harmony's position. The hegemony had somehow tracked them through the stellar interference that had hidden them for 2 weeks. "How did they find us?" Captain Rodriguez demanded. Lieutenant Torres shook her head grimly. "Unknown, sir, but they're hailing us on all frequencies." The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that was clearly the product of multiple species genetics. The hegemony commander had the scales of one species, the extra arms of another, and eyes that suggested artificial enhancement. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "Human vessel, you carry property belonging to the hegemony. Surrender the Zephyrian bioform immediately, and your crew will be permitted to depart unharmed." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds they faced. "Commander, Princess Lyranel is aboard this ship by her own choice. She is not property, and we do not surrender our passengers to anyone." The hegemony commander's expression shifted to what might have been amusement. "Your primitive concepts of individual choice are irrelevant. The bioform has undergone modifications that make it valuable to hegemony science. It will be acquired, with or without your cooperation." Princess Lyranel moved to stand beside Sarah, her skin patterns blazing with colors that seemed to pulse in harmony with the ship's energy systems. "I am not a bioform to be collected. I am Lyranel of Zephyr Prime, and I choose to stand with those who value freedom over possession." "Your choice is noted and disregarded," the commander replied. "You have 30 seconds to prepare for boarding, or we will take what we require from the wreckage of your ship." The transmission cut off, leaving them staring at 12 ships that could destroy them with minimal effort. But as Sarah looked around the bridge, she saw something that gave her hope. Her crew wasn't showing fear. They were showing the same determined expression that had carried humanity from cave fires to starlight. "Princess," Sarah said quietly, "how connected are you to the ship's systems?" Lyranel's eyes blazed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to reach into the very structure around them. "Completely. I am the ship and the ship is me. We are integrated at the quantum level." "Then show our friends from the hegemony what happens when you threaten a human ship," Sarah said with a grin that would have made her warrior ancestors proud. "Show them what we've become together." Princess Liranel closed her eyes, and every system aboard the Harmony suddenly operated at levels that exceeded their design specifications. The ship didn't just move, it flowed through space like a living thing, guided by an intelligence that understood both the mathematical precision of Zephyrian science and the intuitive adaptability of human innovation. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy realized that evolution had taken an unexpected turn, and that the fusion of different species' strengths could create something far more powerful than the sum of its parts. The USS Harmony moved through space like no ship had ever moved before. Princess Liranel, her consciousness now fully integrated with the vessel's systems, guided them through weapons fire that should have been impossible to avoid. The ship didn't dodge, it flowed, anticipating the hegemony weapons' targeting patterns with an intuition that combined Zephyrian mathematical precision with human unpredictability. Impossible, Lieutenant Torres breathed, watching the tactical display as they weaved between energy beams that could have vaporized a small moon. The computational power required to predict those firing patterns in real time is not computational at all, Princess Liranel replied, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated through the ship's hull. I feel their intentions before they fire. Every biological mind leaves traces in subspace. I simply read those traces and respond. Captain Rodriguez gripped his command chair as the ship performed maneuvers that should have liquefied every person aboard. Instead, the inertial dampeners, now enhanced by Zephyrian biotechnology, kept them comfortable while they danced between destruction. Princess, can you do more than just avoid their fire? Sarah asked. Liranel's skin patterns shifted to colors that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's power core. Watch. The Harmony's weapon systems, originally designed for defensive purposes, suddenly began firing with precision that defied their technical specifications. Each shot found weaknesses in the hegemony ship's shields, not through superior firepower, but through perfect placement at moments when their defensive systems were cycling. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated the evolution taking place. Aboard the human vessel, Dr. Webb, working at his communication station, suddenly began transmitting on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible with their equipment. His fingers moved over controls with a fluidity that suggested direct neural interface, even though no such system existed on the ship. I'm broadcasting something, he said with wonder in his voice. I don't know how, but I'm sending out a signal that's disrupting their coordination protocols. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her biomedical station, her eyes wide with realization. We're all connected now. The princess hasn't just adapted to our technology. She's created a network that includes the entire crew. We're thinking and acting as a collective consciousness while maintaining our individual personalities. The proof of her words became apparent as the battle continued. Every crew member began performing beyond their normal capabilities, not because they were being controlled, but because they could draw on the knowledge and abilities of everyone else aboard the ship. The navigator could feel the princess's intuitive understanding of space-time. The engineer could access Dr. Vasquez's knowledge of bioneural systems. Sarah herself found that she could perceive the battle from multiple perspectives simultaneously, seeing patterns and opportunities that would have been invisible to her individual consciousness. The hegemony commander appeared on the screen again, his multiple eyes reflecting confusion and growing alarm. What have you done to yourselves? You are registering as a single bioneural entity, but with 12 distinct consciousness signatures. We've evolved, Sarah replied, her voice carrying new harmonics that seemed to resonate with the ship itself. We've become what you tried to create through conquest and assimilation, but we did it through choice and cooperation. Impossible. Our research indicates that true bioneural integration requires technological implantation and genetic modification. Princess Liranel stepped into view beside Sarah, her bioluminescent patterns now mirrored by similar patterns appearing on the skin of the human crew members. Your research was incomplete. True integration cannot be forced, it must be chosen, welcomed, and nurtured. You create slaves. We have created family. The tactical display showed something that made the hegemony commander's expression shift from confusion to fear. 3 more ships were dropping out of hyperspace, but these weren't reinforcements for the battle group. They were Zephyrian vessels, and they were taking defensive positions around the Harmony. This is Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps, came a familiar voice over the communication system. Hegemony forces, you are engaging a vessel under the protection of both the Zephyrian Empire and Earth's United Nations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The hegemony commander's multiple species heritage suddenly seemed less impressive as he faced the reality of fighting both human and Zephyrian forces simultaneously. But it was the arrival of the fourth ship that truly changed the balance of power. Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force, came a voice that made Sarah's heart skip. You are interfering with a joint human-Zephyrian diplomatic mission. Stand down immediately. Sarah stared at the communication panel in shock. Admiral Sarah Chen? But I'm Sarah Chen. Princess Lyranel's skin pattern shifted to colors that suggested gentle amusement. Commander, meet your future self. Time flows differently in the bio-neural network we've created. The Admiral has come back to ensure that this moment happens as it must. The tactical display showed the new arrival, a ship that was clearly human in design but incorporated flowing elements that suggested Zephyrian influence. It was beautiful and functional in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. Sarah, came the Admiral's voice again, now on a private channel. I know this is confusing, but trust me, the hegemony retreats here and now, and what happens aboard your ship becomes the foundation for everything that follows. Don't try to understand it, just let it happen. The hegemony commander made the calculation that all bullies eventually face. The cost of victory had become too high. His battle group withdrew, vanishing into hyperspace with the haste of predators who had discovered their prey had teeth. As the immediate threat disappeared, Sarah found herself staring at the ship that carried her future self. Princess, what exactly have we become? Lyranel moved to the main viewport where stars seemed to pulse in rhythm with her bioluminescent patterns. We have become the bridge between what was and what will be. Your species and mine will merge not through conquest or diplomacy, but through evolution driven by mutual respect and love. Dr. Webb looked up from his station, where he was processing data streams that seemed to flow directly from his consciousness to the ship's computers. The temporal mechanics are stabilizing. The Admiral's ship is returning to its own timeline. Before it disappeared, one final message came through. Sarah, what you choose in the next few minutes will determine whether our species survive as separate entities, constantly in conflict, or evolve into something greater than either could become alone. Choose wisely. The ship vanished, leaving them alone with the Zephyrian vessels and a decision that would reshape the galaxy. Princess Lyranel turned to face Sarah, her alien features now somehow familiar, even beloved. Commander, my father is requesting permission to come aboard. He wants to see what we have become and decide whether it represents hope or danger for both our peoples. Sarah looked around the bridge at her crew, her family, who had been transformed by their journey from a collection of individuals into something unprecedented. They were still human, but they were also more than human. They were the first step toward a future where the barriers between species became bridges. Tell Ambassador Kethvar he's welcome aboard, Sarah said, her decision made. It's time to show the galaxy what evolution looks like when it's guided by love instead of fear. Ambassador Kethavar's shuttle docked with the Harmony 3 hours later, and the moment he stepped aboard, Sarah could see the wonder in his multifaceted eyes. The ship had continued evolving during their preparation for his arrival, with bioluminescent pathways now running along the corridors like a circulatory system of light. The air itself seemed to pulse with gentle energy that made breathing easier and thinking clearer. Princess Lyranel met her father at the airlock, and their reunion was a display of color patterns so complex and beautiful that it left the human crew members speechless. When they embraced, light flowed between them in ways that transcended simple biology, creating a momentary mandala of pure emotion that spoke of love, loss, forgiveness, and hope. My daughter, Kethavar said softly, his formal demeanor cracking to reveal parental concern. What have you become? What we were always meant to be, Lyra replied, her patterns now including hues that matched the bioluminescence flowing through the ship's walls. I am still your daughter, but I am also something new. We all are. Sarah stepped forward, offering the traditional Zephyrian greeting she had learned during their diplomatic training. Ambassador, welcome aboard the Harmony. I hope you'll forgive the unusual circumstances of our meeting. Kethavar studied her with the intensity of someone examining a phenomenon that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. Commander Chen, my sensors indicate that you and your crew are registering bioneural patterns that should be impossible for your species. A lot of things that should be impossible have been happening lately, Sarah replied with a smile. Would you like a tour? I think seeing what we've become will explain more than words ever could. The tour through the Harmony was a journey through evolution in real time. In the engineering section, they found Chief Engineer Martinez working directly with the ship's systems through what appeared to be pure thought, his hands dancing through holographic displays that responded to intention rather than touch. The engines themselves had been transformed, now incorporating crystalline elements that pulsed with the same rhythms as Zephyrian biotechnology. In the medical bay, Dr. Vasquez showed them readings that documented the changes occurring in every crew member. We're becoming something that's never existed before, she explained to the ambassador. Not human, not Zephyrian, but a synthesis that incorporates the strengths of both species while eliminating many of the limitations. The cellular regeneration rates alone are remarkable, Kethvar observed, studying the data. You are healing faster, thinking more clearly, and processing information at rates that approach Zephyrian baseline capabilities. While retaining human adaptability and innovative thinking, Princess Lyranel added, the combination is producing results that exceed what either species could achieve independently. But it was in the ship's transformed hydroponics bay that Ambassador Kethvar truly understood the magnitude of what had occurred. The space had become something between a garden and a living computer, with hybrid plants that generated both nutrition and computational power while maintaining atmospheric balance and producing medicines tailored to each crew member's individual biology. This is not possible, he whispered, running his hands along vines that seemed to respond to his touch with gentle pulses of light. The level of bioneural integration required to create something like this would take centuries to develop. Unless you have a catalyst, Sarah said, smiling at Princess Lyranel. Your daughter didn't just adapt to our ship. She became the bridge that allowed our technologies to merge. She's the reason we've all been able to evolve beyond our original limitations. Dr. Webb approached them, carrying a device that hadn't existed when they began their journey. Ambassador, we've been documenting everything. This represents more than just technological advancement. It's proof that species evolution can be accelerated through cooperation rather than competition. Kethvar examined the device, his skin patterns shifting through colors that indicated deep thought. What are the implications for our peoples? If this transformation can be replicated, then the old barriers between species become irrelevant, Captain Rodriguez said, joining their group. We're not talking about humans becoming Zephyrians or vice versa. We're talking about both species evolving into something new together. Which brings us to why you're really here, Sarah said, guiding them to the observation lounge where Earth hung in the distance like a blue jewel. You didn't come just to see your daughter. You came to decide whether what we've become represents an opportunity or a threat. Ambassador Kethvar was quiet for several minutes, watching Earth rotate slowly against the star field. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of decisions that would affect billions of lives. What you represent terrifies many in my government, he admitted. The idea that our species might lose their distinct identities, that we might cease to be purely Zephyrian. But we haven't lost our identities, Princess Lyranel interrupted gently. I am still Zephyrian in all the ways that matter. My values, my memories, my connection to our culture, these remain unchanged. I have simply gained additional capabilities and perspectives. And we're still human, Sarah added. We still think like humans, dream like humans, face challenges with human determination. We've just become more than we were before. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a holographic display showing the crew's psychological profiles. The personality assessments are fascinating. Everyone has retained their core identity while developing enhanced empathy, improved problem-solving abilities, and what can only be described as expanded consciousness. Kethvar studied the data with the careful attention of someone whose decisions would shape the future of galactic civilization. And the process is voluntary? It cannot be forced? That seems to be a fundamental requirement, Princess Lyranel replied. The bioneural integration only occurs when there is genuine mutual respect and willingness to change. It cannot be imposed through technology or coercion, which means the hegemony's approach will never work, Sarah observed. They can create slaves and construct hybrid beings, but they can't create what we have because they don't understand that evolution requires trust. The ambassador walked to the viewport and placed his hand against the transparent aluminum, staring out at the stars that held both their species' futures. If I recommend that the Zephyrian Empire pursue this path, there will be no going back. We will be choosing evolution over preservation, change over stability. Is that such a bad thing? Captain Rodriguez asked. Both our species have survived by adapting to new challenges. This is just the next step in that adaptation. Princess Lyranel moved to stand beside her father, her bioluminescent patterns reflecting off the viewport to create a cascade of light that seemed to encompass the entire universe. Father, for the first time in my life I can see possibilities instead of limitations. I can feel the connections between all living things, understand problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously, and work with others in ways that transcend individual achievement. And you are happy? Kethvar asked softly. I am more than happy, she replied. I am complete in ways I never imagined possible. The ambassador turned to face Sarah, his decision written in the color patterns flowing across his skin. Commander Chen, I will recommend to my government that we begin formal cooperation in exploring this evolutionary path. But I have one condition. What condition? That the first joint colony be established by volunteers from both species who are willing to undergo this transformation together. We must prove that what has happened aboard your ship can be replicated on a larger scale. Sarah felt the rightness of the decision resonate through the bio-neural network that connected her to her crew and to Princess Lyranel. This was the moment that would be remembered as the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history, the first truly voluntary evolution of sentient species. Ambassador, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of agreement, while simultaneously offering the Zephyrian gesture of mutual commitment. I think we have the foundation for a beautiful friendship. As they shook hands, bioluminescent patterns flowed between them, and Sarah realized that the transformation of the galaxy had already begun. The USS Harmony had started as a diplomatic mission, but it had become something far more important. The first ship to carry the future of both species toward a destiny that neither could have achieved alone. Outside the viewport, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its children had just taken the first step toward becoming something magnificent and unprecedented. The age of separate species was ending, and the age of conscious evolution had begun.